Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. And let me congratulate my colleague, Minority Councillor, Mrs. Petal Daniel Benoit, and also commendations to those on the other side who contributed in this most important debate. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, today, the people of Tobago got an opportunity to see contributions from the minority side and contributions from the majority side. This motion, many would admit, is a less than contentious motion. In fact, all the contributions agreed that we indeed require a formal remote workforce policy. And I stress on the word formal because from the evidence and the admittance from even those on the other side, they admit that there was already policies and active positions that enabled persons to work from home. In fact, I went through lengths to show this Honorable House how the previous administration would have facilitated persons working from home. And even to this day, the Tobago House of Assembly is allowing persons to work from home. What this policy is calling for is for us to formalize the arrangement and have it as a wide-based policy across all divisions. However, you recognize the majority took this opportunity to come into this house and grandstand. They came into this house with arrogance. They came into this house, and I must say I'm quite disappointed because the people of Tobago would have given you a mandate to come in and govern with humility. But yet we saw the arrogance and we saw an administration that is no longer focused on their mantra, let we fix it, but instead really focus on let we blame it. And this cannot be what Tobagonians voted for. I'm sure there are many Tobagonians already very disappointed, including those CPEP workers who for 2 months running, first time, unprecedented, 2 months running, the very people who depend, you say come to treat with bread and butter issues, and the bread and butter people are the ones suffering right now. Yet you come into this house in a most noble motion, in a motion where we all can agree that let us treat with the issue of workforce policy to blame it. And that, my brothers and sisters, that, my colleagues, is very disappointing. Like the President would have implored all of us, we are here to do the bidding of the people of Tobago. On this side of the minority, we have already, both in words and in actions, showed that we are not here to play the petty politics of old. We are here to serve Tobagonians who require people to treat with their needs. We are not here about social media likes and fanciful pictures glossed all over the place. This minority is about serious development for the people of Tobago. In fact, I've heard you all gloating about what the past administration did or didn't do. And I want to put it on public record here for the House. I, Kelvon Morris, was never part of a former administration of this Honorable House. And therefore, the legacy that will be set here by this minority is a legacy premised on working for the people, working with the people, and staying on the ground, understanding the basic human needs of the people. And it is this what I would bring to the House. I'm not here to play the blame game. I'm not here to look in the review mirror. And at one point I thought that is where my colleague from Buku Mount Pleasant was, because he missed the bus. The motion was up in Charlottesville and he was down in Canaan. My colleague, councillor, very respectful guy, spent a lot of time talking about the teaching experience and teacher experience. But let us really take a walk down the memory lane, because like some of you all seem to have amnesia. Nobody planned for COVID. Nobody knew that we would experience COVID-19. In fact, it took the world almost a year to really understand what this virus is. And when we had our first case in about March, the central government would have swiftly closed down all schools. So teachers were home for about 2 terms, I recall. And you would remember there was a number of public ordinances and public policy that would have allowed persons basically shut down non-essential workers from reporting to work, because we had to stay at home. Remember, the mantra was wear your mask, watch your distance, and wash your hands. That was the time we lived in 2020. And then Deputy Presiding Officer, that would have continued upwards to about August of last year. And thereafter, in about January, we had an elections. And we all recall the outcome of the elections. And we all recall the circumstances upon which we were called to govern. So to come here and indicate that no actions were taken is quite disingenuous, is quite dishonest. And I must admit, it is quite concerning. And more than that, this document I have in my hand, which comes from the Ministry of Planning, and is a document that was in response to questions of the Joint Select Committee on Social Services and Public Administration. This document clearly stated that the Tobago House of Assembly, which included the previous Tobago House of Assembly led by the PNM, were already engaged in a series of consultations, a series of planning with the CSO to treat with this most important issue of the development of a work-from-home policy for both the public service and both the civil service. And I can call out some of the ministries that participated. Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, Ministry of Works and Transport, Office of the Prime Minister, Ministry of Planning and Development, Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Finance, the Personnel Department, Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, the Tobago House of Assembly, and the Ministry of Public Administration and Digital Transformation. All these ministries were in collaboration, in concert, planning and preparing a document for a work-from-home policy for all the public service. Because as I indicated before, and I heard my good friend from, I think it's Bethesda Lecato, would have indicated that all it requires is an executive council note. My dear friend, let me employ you and let me school you in terms of how matters of this is treated. Our August House cannot make laws, and the type of legislative reformation that this kind of policy would require will require the intervention, the legal intervention of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. So it is therefore, again, quite disingenuous to say that such a policy can simply be implemented overnight. And the majority side continue to contradict themselves. because we had member from Buku Mount Pleasant saying in one breath, this policy cannot be done overnight. And in the next breath, you all are trying to amend this motion to indicate that the former administration derelicted its duty to implement this policy. Pick your poison. Which one is it? So, Madam, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, I cannot conscionably support these amendments. In fact, because no way, there's no proof, no evidence that the former administration failed or neglected its responsibility, because over this entire debate, Minority Council and myself was able to lucidly demonstrate that the former administration would have taken steps within its level of control to ensure that persons within the Tobago House of Assembly was afforded the opportunity to work from home during the COVID-19 pandemic. That's the fact. So this amendment that the majority side is trying to infuse in this motion is quite malicious, it is disingenuous, it is frivolous, and it is quite irrelevant. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, as I conclude, I maintain the implementation of a report, a remote workforce management policy, is critical to successfully managing the assembly operations in a post-COVID-19 environment. As leaders of this island, it is imperative that insightful and decisive leadership is practiced in managing this public health issue. And perhaps it's because the current administration really don't know what to do, why they're trying to run from this urgent mandate for us to treat with the remote workforce policy. I know all of us are green, and you could ask questions, because we're here to work for Tobago. We are here to help you if you need help. But don't run from the responsibility. Don't shirk from the responsibility. Tobagonians gave you overwhelming support, and they are looking on to see if you are able and if you are capable to take on that mandate and that trust they would have reposed in you. So this blaming the PNM would only get you so far. Blaming the PNM might last for 6 months, but trust me, you see, if all you keep on not paying those CPEP people, you ain't gonna have long in this house. As illustrated in my presentation, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, to date, the Assembly has managed flexi-time and rational work-based policies received from the Chief Personnel Officer and subsequently the Chief Administrator. However, as we return to full operations, we must put measures in place to manage and protect our workforce. Additionally, Tobago has the opportunity to lead the way nationally as it relates to remote working, as the nature and size of our public service gives greater room to implement, make adjustments, and address any challenges that may arise with the operationalization of the policy. I wish to reiterate that not only will this policy affect the level of efficiency within the Assembly, but it will also improve the ICT infrastructure and the digitization of government functions, and this in turn will reduce office-related expenditure. It would also provide tourism opportunities targeting digital nomads seeking out new locations for their remote work. Parents with school-age children will also benefit immensely from this policy, as they will be able to work remotely on days where these children are not physically in school, but rather engage in online learning, providing them with the required level of supervision and guidance. Madam Presiding Officer, development of this policy will have wide-reaching benefits to our operations, our economy, and social development. It will show that we are adjusting our operations to adapt to the international standards, improving our infrastructure to meet the new demands, and we are considerate of the impact of this pandemic on our families and our employees. Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, as I close, I wish to leverage to my colleagues on the other side that we are faced with COVID-19 right now. However, if you look at global trends, global trajectory, if you look at all the indications, you would realize that COVID-19 is but the tip of the iceberg. And therefore, while it would have caught us figuratively with our pants down, we should not let this reoccur going forward. And it is for this reason, as a minority, wanting to see my island of Tobago lead, and as the Honorable Chief Secretary continues to remind us, become the greatest little island in the world, I am placing on record this motion for us, as a matter of urgency, to develop and implement a remote workforce management policy for all divisions and all agencies of the Tobago House of Assembly. I thank you.